Okay, welcome to Voice of the Box. I've got the great pleasure of Joe Fonzi joining me. Joe, you certainly don't need an introduction to any sports fan here in the greater Northern California region. There might be maybe a relative of mine that watches in Chicago that may not know who you are, but we're not here to build you up. We're here to break you down today. Just kidding. First of all, we're here on your set, post-game show. What's it like to answer questions opposed to ask them?
Well, this is the first one right here. I don't know. Ask me a question.
Generally speaking, have you ever been interviewed, even for fun? This is obviously for fun. This is not going out live on air. But obviously you are really accustomed to asking the questions. Have you ever had anyone actually just interview in a very light format like this before?
I think the scariest thing is when you're interviewed for print, because sometimes the words in print don't really translate. There can be an inflection there, or there can be sarcasm or humor or whatever, and you just see the words without that,
right.
And it doesn't always translate. You're at the mercy of the person who's writing the story than you are something like this, where people can see if you're smiling or how you meant something.
Exactly, kind of like email. We were just talking, you've been covering the Bay Area sports scene since '82, and I wanted to kind of look forward. We're here talking about the playoffs and Super Bowl. Certainly the energy on the field, on the football field, really spikes upward when it comes playoff time, and then the Super Bowl. You've covered how many Super Bowls with this particular franchise? We're talking about the Niners in specifics.
With the 49ers, I've been to 3 of their 5 Super Bowls. I covered the team both of those other 2 years, made it as far as the NFC Championship game, but for budgetary reasons or whatever, I did not go to the actual Super Bowl games. So I was at the one at Stanford, their second Super Bowl championship, the one at Miami, the John Taylor catch, and the one the following year in New Orleans where the 49ers just killed the Denver Broncos, 55-10, I think the score was.
Right. So what is that like from your perspective? Is there does the intensity level ratchet up when you have to get guests, or just in your day-to-day coverage of the those 2 weeks or 1 week, depending on what the situation was in the calendar? What is that like from the media's perspective?
Well, from the media's perspective, we don't do anything, but we can sense when games have importance. I mean, people in the media would love to go as far as you can. I mean, do you want to be out of the playoffs, or do you want to cover Super Bowl? I mean, people in the media want to do it just about as much as the guys on the team do. We don't get any extra money or anything the way the players do, but obviously your job is so much easier when you're covering a winning team. Now, there may not be the storylines that there are on a losing team. The talk radios don't light up and all those kinds of things when there's not a quarterback controversy, when your quarterback's, an all-pro and doing all the things he should be doing, which we saw here in the 80s. Tell me the other franchise that went from one Hall of Fame quarterback to another Hall of Fame quarterback, and they didn't really miss a beat. And stayed competitive for 20 years. So I had the good fortune in the 80s of being part of, something that, most franchises never get to experience that for a whole decade, to win 4 Super Bowls in a decade, to be the dominant team of the decade. I got a chance to experience that, and the last decade has not been quite as good. So I got to experience both ends of it, and it does affect how you do your job.
Sure.
Players aren't as willing or apt to come talk to you. Who wants to come talk and explain why you got blown out in a football game?
Right.
So it makes it a little bit more of an adversarial relationship than the nature of this business is that way anyway. But when you're winning, everybody's happy, and when you're losing, nobody is.
Right. And you kind of mentioned, you just led into something here. People or players just aren't as interested to talk. In your field, you've got to get the questions. You got to get these guys to talk. What can you tell us or share with us? Maybe an interesting story. Sometimes I've been around football players. They say a lot. Were they really not even saying a whole lot? Any experience where just one interview that just you couldn't get anything out of it? Whether you just kind of laughed out about it later on.
Well, I can't think of one name in particular, but obviously there are times where guys might want to answer yes or no.
Sure.
And that doesn't make for the most enlightening interview in the world.
Correct.
So you have to kind of think of your questions in a way that you're not going to ask something that can be answered yes or no. And I think also, you have to have some empathy for a guy who this is his profession, this is his career, and he's as upset as anybody. So, the last thing he wants to do is have to spill his guts in the media as to what just happened out on the field. So I think you have to have some empathy, and you have to ask your question in a way where at least there's some understanding of what you're going through, rather than just saying, you're terrible, how come? You're not going to get anything from a guy if you do that.
Absolutely. I want to just change gears just a little bit, kind of the premise of Voice of the Box is to talk more about careers in sports. Obviously, this is a big part of sports, is the coverage of it. Perhaps there was one pearl of wisdom somewhere back in your day, whether it was your college days or maybe when you landed your first job, that just something that stuck or resonated with you that you still think about, and maybe what in turn would you impart to someone else that's looking to break in to broadcasting? Anything that you can mention?
Yeah, I'd say a couple little things, and I say this all the time. Number one, I think most people who are in sports played it in some capacity. For me, the end of the road was college, when I realized that, okay, you're not playing on a Division II non-scholarship baseball team. So chances are that's not a career path if you're not playing. So but I still had sports as the kind of thing I was passionate about, and so I didn't know exactly in what capacity I wanted to do something in sports, but I knew I wanted to. So I changed my major from PE to communications with the idea that, just get my foot in the door somewhere, and I don't know if it's running camera for Monday Night Football or something, but if you can get paid to go to sporting events, I thought, man, that's pretty darn good.
Right.
So, then I got a little taste of that as an intern, and then anybody who I think wants to get into this business, the little bit of advice is, get your foot in the door and take that opportunity. You are not going to do what you ultimately want to do for your first job.
Sure.
My first job had nothing to do with covering anything, nothing to do with being on the air, nothing to do with sports. But I was in the building in a honest-to-goodness television station. My first job was called Film Boy. I mixed chemicals for 16mm film, went in a dark room, loaded it up, and made trips to the Greyhound bus depot to go pick up the Dinah Shore show and ship it to another small station and receive it. But I was in the door. So I made friends with the guys in the sports department. It was a small enough station. It was in Chico, where there are no union restrictions, and then all of a sudden the guys in the sports department feel, hey, this kid's interested in sports. We need somebody to go shoot the whatever game today, Chico State against Humboldt State. Here, you set the camera at this, shoot this, follow the ball, and then all of a sudden you're in the sports department, so, and if you're not willing to do that, then you're not the guy they ask. So if this is what you want to do, get in the door. Whatever it is, and don't be picky about what that first job is, because it's not going to be what you ultimately want to do.
Right, and the way sports information is passed out, with the internet, there's just so many other ways and methods and other jobs. Was just get in no matter what the job. Was that the message? Because again, we want to kind of gear that towards a student.
I would say follow your passion, and that's how overstated is that.
Right.
But it's true. I wanted to stay involved in sports in some capacity, and then don't think that you're going to start out, they're going to go, oh yeah, by the way, we want you to work at ESPN tomorrow. Because that's not going to be your first job. That's the job you're going to do after you've maybe been at the business for 7 or 8 years. And you're going to work nights and you're going to work weekends and all those things to start before you get the plum assignments.
Right.
You're going to do high schools. You're going to do all kinds of things. You're not going to come out and say, hey, you get to cover the 49ers for your first job.
Right. Next question, and maybe last question, and this is not to push you out the door. Say you've been here since '82. Please understand that's not where this question is coming from. I'm not doing a haymaker, but you have been covering it for, you've got a great run, and that run is obviously continuing. What is there just one thing that keeps you coming back? I like to ask that question to people that are in a variety of roles. What is it that keeps you coming back to do what you do?
I have children in college that I need to keep paying for.
There you have it. There you have it.
No, I still, that's part of it, obviously.
Sure.
But I
beyond that, perhaps.
No, I still like my job. I get paid to go to football games. How can you beat that? I've never woken up in the morning and said, oh, geez, I got to go to work today and, stamp out whatever. I don't know the script of how this is going to turn out today. The 49ers played the Lions today. The 49ers were favorites. It was 6-3 at halftime.
Right.
We didn't know how it was going to unfold. And there's not a script. There's a new thing that unfolds every day. You get to meet interesting people. You get to do something that you enjoy doing. So I feel very fortunate that I've been able to do that. And I'll keep doing it probably until they kick me out.
Well, hopefully that won't be soon. Thanks a lot, Joe Fonzi, for taking a few minutes right here on Voice of the Box.